fall of Swat to the Taliban was a real wake-up call. And I saw on my trips to Pakistan a sea change in attitudes after that.
Well, so let's talk about that, because at least it seems now that what happened was that the provincial government of the Northwest Frontier Province, with the agreement of the army and ultimately with the, I think perhaps somewhat reluctant acquiescence, but certainly the acquiescence of President Zardari, reached an understanding with the local Taliban to, in effect, cede large areas of control over Swat to them. But the premise was what they want is to create what they called Sharia courts. They have limited ambitions. But it now seems, not surprisingly, that those weren't limited ambitions, and they're now moving further eastwards, further southwards, that much closer towards Islamabad. And so do you have, you said that there was a wake-up call. Do you have confidence now that the army is going to really start pushing back in a big way as these Taliban move closer and closer to the capital of the country?
I'm so sorry we don't have a map here, because I know that for so many of you this is hard to follow, but I'll try to answer Jim's question with a hand map, which I'll do from your side. If Pakistan is a sort of a country like this, a sliver down the middle, here is Afghanistan from your side, over here, and here's India. And in the right between India and Pakistan is the disputed territory of Kashmir. The area Jim's talking about is right on the is not the tribal areas up against the Afghan border, the famous tribal areas, which, by the way, is where Rudyard Kipling's greatest books were set. Kim, for example, is set in the tribal areas. Winston Churchill wrote his first book about combat in Malakand. If you read the New York Times these days, you'll see the same place names Churchill wrote about. But that's not what Jim's talking about. He's talking about an area closer to the capital called Swat. And that area was taken by the Taliban without much of a fight. And the army cut a deal with them. And then the parliament ratified the deal, and President Zardari was pushed into signing it. He had opposed it. And that is really what scared people. The Taliban leaders who took over Swat were very brutal, as you would expect, and particularly to women. And they've been riding around Swat, terrorizing people in pickup trucks. The army, they then expanded even further, and they took over an area between Swat and Islamabad, which put them very close to taking over the east-west highway from Karachi up over the Khyber Pass into Afghanistan. Now that's the highway over which 75% of the resupply to the American troops goes. And you don't want to lose the Khyber Pass. And they're also very close to the north-south highway, the Karakoram High Road up into the Himalayas. I'm sure those of you with any sense of history or literature will recognize these names: Khyber Pass, Karachi, Karakoram High Road, Swat. These are legendary parts of history. So that's when the panic kind of set in. People really got agitated. The army then started moving back in 3 or 4 days ago, and they retook this area below Swat called Bunair. They took it back.
So they now have actual control of Bunair.
They've retaken.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if they have control of all of it. We don't have any Americans in there. But only Americans are going. There are very brave journalists. There are no official Americans in there, and aerial observation doesn't tell you everything that's happened. But the refugees, they've caused some refugees, unfortunately. We set aside money for refugees as soon as this happened a few weeks ago, because we knew there'd be refugees. The military is going to retake Swat, they say, but it comes back to the earlier problem. If you have only 120,000 troops and you've got this entire area, how are you going to deal with it?